I stood outside the crystal ballroom, staring at the golden doors that led to my sister's engagement party. Through the windows, I could see the glittering chandeliers, the champagne towers, the perfectly dressed guests, and I could see them, my family, laughing and celebrating like they didn't have a care in the world. They had no idea I was coming. They had no idea what I knew, and they definitely had no idea that the building they were celebrating in belonged to me. My name is Maya Chen. I'm 28 years old, and I haven't spoken a single word in 21 years. But tonight, my silence was about to say everything. Let me take you back to understand how we got here. When I was 7 years old, something happened that changed my life forever. My mother, Catherine Chen, was driving me home from piano lessons when another car ran a red light and hit us head-on. My mother walked away with minor injuries. I spent 3 months in the hospital with a fractured skull and severe trauma. When I finally came home, I couldn't speak anymore. The doctors called it selective mutism, triggered by psychological trauma. They said with therapy and time, I might recover. I never did, or at least, that's what everyone believed. My father, Richard Chen, was the founder of Chen Technologies, a major software company worth hundreds of millions. My mother came from old money, the kind where your family name opens doors before you even knock. They had built a perfect life, perfect house, perfect business, perfect reputation. And then they had me, the daughter who couldn't speak. I became their secret shame, the broken child they tried to hide from their social circle. They hired private tutors so I wouldn't embarrass them at school. They kept me out of family photos. When people asked about me, they'd say I was studying abroad or away at a special school. The truth was, I was locked in my room, invisible, forgotten. My older sister Isabella was the opposite of me in every way. Beautiful, confident, eloquent, everything I wasn't. She was 3 years older and treated like royalty. She got into Harvard. She dated the son of a senator. She was being groomed to take over the family business. Isabella treated me like I didn't exist. And when she did acknowledge me, it was with barely concealed disgust. She'd say things like, "It's so embarrassing having a mute sister," or, "Why can't you just try to be normal?" My parents never defended me. They agreed with her. By the time I was 16, I had accepted my role. The invisible daughter, the mistake, the one who ruined the family's perfect image. But here's what nobody knew. I was never actually mute. The accident didn't take my voice, it took my trust. I could speak perfectly fine. But after the accident, after I heard my mother on the phone with my father in my hospital room, maybe it would have been better if she hadn't survived Richard. How are we supposed to manage a brain-damaged child? I made a decision. I chose silence. Not because I couldn't speak, but because I realized something powerful. People say everything when they think you can't hear, can't understand, can't repeat it. So I became invisible. And invisible people see everything. For 11 years, I watched and listened. I learned about my father's business dealings, my mother's affairs, Isabella's schemes. I sat in corners during board meetings, quiet as a ghost, while executives discussed confidential strategies. I was at family dinners where lawyers laid out inheritance plans, assuming I couldn't comprehend a word. They gave me access to everything because they thought I was nothing, and I used it all. When I turned 18, my parents gave me a trust fund, not out of love, but out of legal obligation. My grandmother had set it up before she died, and they couldn't touch it. It was $2 million, a fortune by any standard. But my family assumed I was too impaired to manage it. They assigned me a financial advisor from their firm, a man named Gregory, who treated me like a child who needed pretty pictures to understand money. What Gregory didn't know was that I had been teaching myself everything. While everyone thought I was staring blankly at walls, I was reading financial journals, studying market trends, learning code, understanding business strategy. I had absorbed everything happening around me for over a decade. I took my $2 million and started investing, quietly, carefully, intelligently. I bought stocks in companies before they exploded. I invested in startups that my father's firm had rejected. I learned cryptocurrency before it went mainstream. Within 3 years, I had turned 2 million into 20 million. But I didn't stop there. I created a company, Silk Ventures, named after the Chinese proverb, "Silk is soft but strong." I kept my ownership hidden through layers of LLCs and trusts. Nobody knew Maya Chen was behind it. Silk Ventures started acquiring properties, small boutique hotels first, then commercial real estate, then entire buildings. I hired the best people, stayed completely anonymous, and let my empire grow in the shadows. By the time I was 25, I owned 15 properties across 3 states. By 27, I had built a portfolio worth over $300 million. I was wealthier than my father, more successful than Isabella, more powerful than any of them could imagine. And they had no idea. To them, I was still the mute, broken girl living off a trust fund in a tiny apartment, too damaged to function in society. They never asked where I lived. They never visited. They never cared. Perfect. 3 weeks ago, I received a cream-colored envelope delivered to my real address, a penthouse apartment in the Diamond Tower, the most exclusive building in the city, a building I owned. Inside was an invitation to Isabella's engagement party. My first instinct was to throw it away. Why would I attend? They hadn't invited me to anything, years. I was the family embarrassment, remember? But then I saw the venue. Crystal Ballroom, Metropolitan Grand Hotel. My hotel. I had purchased the Metropolitan Grand 6 months ago. It was my pride and joy, a historic landmark that I'd personally renovated. The Crystal Ballroom was the crown jewel, a space so elegant that booking it cost 6 figures for a single night. Isabella was having her engagement party in my building and didn't even know it. The irony was delicious, but it got better. I did some digging into Isabella's fiancé, Marcus Ashford. On the surface, he was perfect. Harvard law graduate, junior partner at a prestigious firm, from a wealthy Boston family, exactly the kind of man my parents would approve of. But something felt off. I had learned to trust my instincts over the years, so I hired a private investigator, the best money could buy. Her name was Rachel, and she was terrifyingly good at her job. What Rachel found made my blood run cold. Marcus Ashford wasn't who he claimed to be. His real name was Marcus Brennan. His law degree was real, but his family wealth was a complete fabrication. His family estate in Boston was actually owned by his uncle, who he hadn't spoken to in 5 years. His junior partnership was funded by massive debt that he was drowning in. Marcus was broke. Worse than broke, he owed money to some very dangerous people, and he'd targeted Isabella specifically because of her family's wealth. But here's where it got complicated. Rachel kept digging and found something else. Marcus wasn't working alone. There was someone else involved, someone who knew my family intimately, someone who had helped Marcus create the perfect background, the perfect story, the perfect con. Someone inside the family, and I had a terrible suspicion about who it was. Before we continue with what Maya discovered, if you're enjoying this story, please take 1 second to hit that subscribe button and drop a like. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what you think Maya should do next. Your engagement helps me continue creating these stories, and I truly appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much for being here. Now, back to Maya's story. Rachel's investigation revealed something I never expected. My father's company, Chen Technologies, was in serious trouble. For years, my family had projected an image of wealth and stability, but the reality was very different. Bad investments, failed product launches, and my father's gambling addiction had drained the company's resources. They were hemorrhaging money. Isabella knew. She had been the CFO for 2 years and had seen the numbers. The company had maybe 6 months before bankruptcy. That's why she was marrying Marcus so quickly. That's why the engagement party was so extravagant, a final display of wealth before everything collapsed. But here's what Isabella didn't know. Marcus wasn't her salvation. He was the final nail in the coffin. According to us, Rachel's findings, Marcus planned to marry Isabella, gain access to whatever assets remained, drain them, and disappear. He'd done it before, in 2 other cities, to 2 other wealthy women. And the person who had introduced Marcus to Isabella, who had vouched for him, who had helped him build his fake identity, my mother. I sat in my penthouse apartment, overlooking the city, trying to process this information. My mother had sold Isabella out, her own daughter. For what? Money? A cut of whatever Marcus stole? I pulled up my mother's financial records. Yes, I had access. When you're invisible, people get careless with passwords and documents left lying around. What I found explained everything. My mother had a separate bank account my father didn't know about. Over the past 3 years, she'd been funneling money from the company into this secret account. Not millions, but enough to build a comfortable nest egg for when everything collapsed. She had also purchased a villa in Portugal under a false name. She was planning to disappear. My mother was going to let the company collapse, let my father take the blame, let Isabella marry a con artist, and escape with her secret fortune to Europe. She was saving herself and abandoning everyone else. For the first time in years, I felt something crack inside me. Not sadness, not pain, rage. Pure, cold, calculated rage. My family had treated me like garbage my entire life, but even I never imagined they'd betray each other like this. Isabella didn't deserve what was coming. Despite everything, she was still my sister. And my father, for all his faults, didn't deserve to lose everything because of his wife's selfishness. I made a decision. I was going to that engagement party, and I was going to burn their perfect lies to the ground. I spent the next 2 weeks preparing. This wasn't just about showing up and causing a scene. This needed to be strategic, devastating, and undeniable. First, I contacted Rachel and asked her to gather physical evidence. Documents, photos, recorded conversations, everything we'd need to prove Marcus's real identity and my mother's embezzlement. Second, I reached out to my lawyer, Patricia. She was brilliant, discreet, and had been helping me build my empire in secret for years. I explained the situation and asked her to prepare legal documents that would protect my father and Isabella from the fallout. Third, I coordinated with David, the general manager of the Metropolitan Grand Hotel. David was one of the few people who knew I owned the building. I told him I'd be attending the engagement party and that I might need technical support for a special presentation. David didn't ask questions. He just nodded and said, "Whatever you need, Miss Chen." The night before the party, I stood in front of my closet, choosing an outfit. This wasn't about looking wealthy or powerful. This was about being underestimated one final time. I chose a simple grey dress, minimal makeup, flat shoes. I pulled my hair back in a plain ponytail. I looked exactly like what they expected. The damaged, poor, invisible sister who couldn't afford better. Perfect. The night of the party, I arrived exactly at 8 p.m. I didn't have a formal invitation response. I'd never been expected to actually show up, but I walked right up to the crystal ballroom doors. The doorman looked at me skeptically. "Invitation, miss?" I pulled out the cream envelope and handed it to him silently, making eye contact but not speaking. His expression shifted to uncomfortable pity, the look people always give me. "Oh, I see. Go ahead, miss." I walked inside. The crystal ballroom was magnificent. I'd personally overseen every detail of its renovation. The Venetian chandeliers, the marble floors, the gold leaf ceiling. It had cost me $8 million, and it was worth every penny. The party was exactly what I expected. Over 200 guests in designer clothes, champagne towers, a string quartet, ice sculptures shaped like swans. My family had spent a fortune they didn't have to impress people they didn't like. I spotted Isabella immediately. She was in a white cocktail dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, her arm linked with Marcus. She was radiant, smiling, completely unaware that she was weeks away from losing everything. My father stood near the bar, his face already red from drinking too much. He looked older than I remembered, worn down by stress and secrets. My mother held court near the center of the room, surrounded by society women, playing the role of the proud mother. She was wearing diamonds that I knew for a fact the family couldn't afford anymore, probably bought with stolen company money. None of them had seen me yet. I made my way to a quiet corner, ordered sparkling water from a server, and watched, just like I'd done my entire life, invisible, observing, waiting. Then Isabella saw me. Her expression went from confusion to shock to fury in about 3 seconds. She said something to Marcus, then started walking toward me, her heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. She stopped 3 feet away, her voice low but venomous. "What are you doing here?" I just looked at her, my expression blank. "You weren't supposed to actually come," she hissed. "This is embarrassing. You look ridiculous. You smell like God, like poverty." I didn't react. I'd heard worse from her over the years. "Marcus's family is here," she continued. "Important people. And you show up looking like you got dressed at a thrift store. Can you just sit in the corner and don't talk to anyone? Oh wait, you can't talk anyway." She laughed at her own cruel joke. I took a sip of my water, maintaining eye contact, saying nothing. "Whatever," Isabella snapped. "Just stay out of the way." She turned and walked back to Marcus, who was watching with barely concealed disgust. Even from across the room, I could see him whispering to her, probably asking who the weird girl in the corner was. My mother noticed me next. Her face went pale, then red, then pale again. She made her way over, her smile tight and furious. "Maya," she said through clenched teeth. "What are you doing here? We sent that invitation out of courtesy. We didn't expect you to actually attend." I stayed silent, watching her. "You're embarrassing us," she whispered harshly. "Look at you. Look at this dress. Couldn't you have tried to look presentable?" I tilted my head slightly, as if considering her words. "Just," she sighed dramatically. "Just, please stay quiet and out of sight. This night is important for Isabella's future." She walked away before I could respond, not that she expected one. My father saw me last. He walked over slowly, his expression unreadable. "Maya," he said softly, "I'm surprised you came." I looked at him, this man who had once been my hero, who used to read me bedtime stories before the accident, before everything changed. "Are you doing okay?" he asked, and for a moment I saw genuine concern in his eyes. "Do you need anything? Money?" I shook my head slowly. "Okay, well, try to enjoy yourself. There's food, drinks. Help yourself." He patted my shoulder awkwardly and walked away. None of them knew. Not one of them had any idea who I really was. I checked my watch. 8:47 p.m. In exactly 13 minutes, everything was going to change. I made my way to the edge of the ballroom, where David, my hotel manager, stood discreetly near a service door. He saw me approaching and gave a subtle nod. I pulled out my phone and typed a message, then showed it to him. "Ready?" He nodded again and disappeared through the service door. The engagement party continued around me. Guests mingled, laughed, toasted. Isabella and Marcus were on the small stage, accepting congratulations. My mother beamed beside them. My father drank. Nobody was paying attention to the large screens on either side of the stage, currently showing a slideshow of Isabella and Marcus's relationship. Romantic dinners, beach vacations, Marcus proposing at sunset. All fake, all staged, all part of the con. 8:52 p.m. My phone buzzed, a text from Rachel. "Package delivered, evidence secured, police are standing by." 8:55 p.m. Isabella's maid of honor took the microphone to give a toast. She gushed about how perfect Isabella and Marcus were together, how they were soulmates, how everyone could see they were meant to be. I almost felt bad for what was about to happen. Almost. 8:58 p.m. The maid of honor finished her toast. Marcus took the microphone next, ready to give his prepared speech about love and commitment, and forever. He started talking about how he'd fallen for Isabella the moment he saw her, how she was everything he'd ever dreamed of, how lucky he was to join this incredible family. Every word was a lie, and he delivered them perfectly. 9:00 p.m. The screens flickered. Marcus was mid-sentence when the screens went dark, then flashed to life with something new. A photograph appeared. Marcus, 5 years younger, standing next to a different woman in a wedding dress. Below the photo, text appeared. Marcus Brennan, a.k.a. Marcus Ashford. Married and divorced 3 times. Real identity, career con artist targeting wealthy women. The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at the screens. Marcus stopped talking, his face going from confident to confused to panicked in seconds. The image changed to a police report, then another, then bank records showing Marcus's massive debts, then court documents from previous fraud cases. Isabella stared at the screens, then at Marcus, her face white. "What is this?" she whispered. Marcus tried to speak, but the screens kept cycling through evidence. Photos of him with other women, legal documents, financial records, everything Rachel had gathered over 2 weeks. My mother's voice cut through the silence. "Turn this off! Someone turn this off!" David, from his position by the control room, just shook his head. "Technical malfunction, ma'am. We're working on it." The screens continued. Then they shifted to something new. Something I knew would destroy my mother. Bank records appeared, account statements showing money being transferred out of Chen Technologies, wire transfers to secret accounts, property purchases under false names, dates, amounts, destinations, all traced back to my mother. Catherine Chen, embezzlement evidence. $4.7 million stolen from Chen Technologies. Property purchased in Portugal under alias Catherine Morrison, planned abandonment of family. The room erupted in gasps and whispers. My father stared at the screens, then at my mother, his expression a mixture of shock and betrayal. "Catherine," he said, his voice breaking. "What is this?" My mother's carefully constructed mask shattered completely. "This is... someone is lying. This is fake. This is a setup." But the evidence kept coming. More bank statements, more wire transfers, photos of the Portuguese villa, flight tickets purchased for next month under her fake name. She had nowhere to hide. Isabella was still focused on Marcus. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "Who are you really?" Marcus tried to take her hand. "Isabella, I can explain." She yanked her hand away. "Don't touch me." Security guards appeared at the ballroom doors. Not my hotel security, actual police officers. Detective Sarah Morrison walked in, badge visible. "Marcus Brennan? Catherine Chen. We'd like you to come with us for questioning." That's when my mother saw me. Really saw me. Standing in the corner, phone in my hand, completely calm. Her eyes widened with sudden horrific understanding. "You," she breathed. "You did this." Everyone turned to look at me. The invisible daughter, the mute embarrassment, the one person nobody had paid attention to all night. I set down my glass of water and walked toward the stage. Every step echoed in the silent ballroom. 200 people watched. Me move through the crowd. I reached the stage and climbed the stairs. Marcus backed away from me like I was dangerous. Smart man. I took the microphone from the stand, and then for the first time in 21 years, in front of my entire family, I spoke. "Hello, everyone." My voice was clear, strong, unwavering. "My name is Maya Chen, and I think it's time we had an honest conversation." The shock that rippled through the room was almost physical. My father's champagne glass slipped from his hand and shattered on the marble floor. Isabella's mouth hung open. My mother looked like she'd seen a ghost. I continued. "Most of you know me as the mute daughter, the broken one, the family shame. And for 21 years, I let you believe that. Because silence is an incredible tool. When people think you can't speak, can't understand, can't function, they say everything in front of you. They reveal every secret. They show their true selves. I looked at my mother, like embezzling nearly $5 million from your own husband's company so you could abandon your family and start over in Europe. Then at Marcus, or like targeting vulnerable women, marrying them, stealing everything they have, and disappearing. You've done this before, Mr. Brennan. Twice in California, once in New York. Did you really think Isabella would be different? Then at my father, and like running a company into the ground through bad decisions and gambling addiction while lying to everyone about how successful you are. Finally, I looked at Isabella, and like treating your own sister as subhuman because she was different, because she didn't fit your perfect image. Tears were streaming down Isabella's face. I could speak the entire time, I said to the room. I chose not to, but I never stopped listening, never stopped watching, never stopped learning. And while all of you were so busy looking down on me, I built something incredible. I gestured to the ballroom around us. This building. The Metropolitan Grand Hotel. I own it. I purchased it 6 months ago. This crystal ballroom that you're all celebrating in. I personally designed the renovation. Cost me $8 million. Shocked silence. I also own Silk Ventures, a real estate investment company that controls 15 properties worth over $300 million. I've been building this empire for the past 10 years while living in a penthouse apartment and managing a business portfolio larger than our father's dying company. My father made a choking sound. So, when Isabella's engagement party invitation arrived at my office, yes, my office, with my real address that none of you ever bothered to visit, I thought it was ironic that she'd chosen my hotel for her celebration. And when I discovered that her fiancé was a con artist and my mother was a thief, I realized something important. I paused, letting the weight of the moment build. Despite everything you've done to me, you're still my family, and I couldn't let you destroy each other. I looked at each of them, my broken family, my flawed relatives, the people who had hurt me more than anyone else ever could. I learned something important being invisible all those years, I said quietly. I learned that people who underestimate you are giving you a gift. They're showing you who they really are. And if you're patient, if you're smart, if you're strong enough to wait, you can use that gift to protect yourself and the people you love, even when they don't deserve it. I turned to the police officers. Detective Morrison, you'll find all the evidence you need on Marcus Brennan on those flash drives my lawyer provided. His real identity, his previous victims, his current debts, everything. Detective Morrison nodded. Thank you, Ms. Chen. We've been looking for Mr. Brennan for quite some time. I looked at my mother. As for the embezzlement, the evidence is equally thorough. But here's what's going to happen. You're going to return every penny you stole. You're going to dissolve your Portuguese escape plan. You're going to stay here and face what you've done. And maybe, if you're lucky, Dad won't press charges. My father was staring at my mother like he'd never seen her before. And Dad, I continued, turning to him, your company is dying. You have maybe 4 months before bankruptcy, but I'm going to save it. Not because you deserve it, but because it was Grandma's legacy, and she loved me even when you didn't. I pulled out a document and handed it to him. That's a contract. Silk Ventures will acquire Chen Technologies, restructure the debt, and infuse enough capital to stabilize operations. You'll remain as a figurehead chairman, but I'll control the board. The company will survive, your reputation will survive, but your unlimited power won't. He took the document with shaking hands. Finally, I looked at Isabella, my sister, the golden child who had tormented me for years. Isabella, you deserved better than Marcus. Despite everything, you deserved honesty and real love. I'm sorry you got caught in Mother's scheme, but maybe this is your chance to figure out who you really are when you're not playing the role everyone expects. Isabella was openly sobbing now. I set the microphone back on its stand and turned to address the stunned guests. I apologize for disrupting your evening. The bar will remain open for another hour, courtesy of the hotel. Courtesy of me. Thank you for coming. I walked off the stage and headed toward the ballroom doors. Behind me, I could hear chaos erupting. Marcus being led away in handcuffs, my mother arguing with police, my father trying to process everything, Isabella breaking down. But I kept walking. David met me at the door. Ms. Chen, that was incredible. I nodded. Make sure the Chen family is escorted out safely when they're ready. No charges for the venue. This one's on me. Of course, ma'am. I stepped out into the cool night air, leaving behind the wreckage of my family's perfect facade. I'm sitting in my office at the Chen Technologies headquarters now. Yes, you read that right. After I acquired the company, I moved my operations here. The building needed some updates anyway. My father comes to work every day, mostly to attend meetings I schedule for him. He's sober now. I made rehab a condition of the acquisition. He's not the man he used to be, but he's trying. Last week he asked if we could have lunch together. We did. It was awkward, but it was a start. My mother served 3 months in prison for embezzlement and was released on probation. She's living in a modest apartment, working as a receptionist, paying back what she stole. She sent me a letter last week. I haven't opened it yet. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. Marcus is serving 5 years for fraud. The women he conned before Isabella are finally getting some justice. And Isabella? She moved out of the family home, got her own apartment, and started volunteering at a non-profit that helps disabled children communicate. She calls me every Sunday. The conversations are short and sometimes painful, but they're honest. Last month she told me, "I'm sorry I never saw you, really saw you." I told her, "I know." That was enough. The biggest change, though, is in how people see me now. The business world knows who I am. The media has covered my story. I've been called a genius, a savior, a secret mogul. But the title I like best came from a journalist who wrote, "Maya Chen turned her greatest disadvantage into her greatest weapon. She proved that silence can speak louder than words." I still don't talk much. It's still my choice. But now when I'm silent, people listen differently. They lean in. They wait. They respect the weight of what I might say when I choose to speak. And I've started a foundation, the Silent Strength Foundation, that helps children with disabilities, trauma survivors, and anyone who's ever been underestimated because they're different. We provide therapy, education, business training, everything I wish I'd had growing up. Yesterday, a young girl came to our office with her mother. The girl had stopped speaking after witnessing domestic violence. She was 11 years old, angry, scared, and convinced she was broken. I knelt down to her level, made eye contact, and didn't say a word. Just looked at her, really saw her. Then I pulled out my phone and typed a message. "You're not broken, you're learning. And when you're ready, you'll be stronger than anyone expects, I promise." She read it, and for the first time in months, according to her mother, she smiled. That's why I tell my story. Not for revenge, not for vindication, but for every person who's ever been dismissed, overlooked, underestimated, or told they don't matter because they're different. You matter. Your differences are your power. Your silence can be your strength. And one day, when you're ready, you'll show the world exactly who you are, just like I did. Thank you so much for watching Maya's story. If her journey resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible or underestimated, drop a comment below and tell me your story. You're not alone. Don't forget to like this video if it moved you. Subscribe for more incredible true stories. Comment with your thoughts and experiences. Share this with someone who needs to hear it.